Alright, this is the demonstration for how to properly color and shade a character design. As you can see, I already have Photoshop open. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my character file. So I'm going to go to File and Open. Normally, it's going to take you to this place. You're just going to go underneath the shared drive. I have to do an extra step, but you go to Dropbox. I'm going to find my name. Second period. Character design scans. These are all files in here that you could edit. So all you have to do is find your name. And for this demo, I am going to pretend that I am Jericho. So I'm going to go ahead and open one of his files here. As you can see, it gives you a little preview down here. Alright, so now I've got the drawing imported. Now, I am not going to work directly on this. I'm actually going to make a new file. So we're going to call it, it's going to be a blank file. And pull this drop-down menu, US paper, and hit, make sure it's 7300 resolution, and then it's set to RGB color, and hit OK. So now I'm going to select this. Now, the way I'm going to select it is I'm going to just use the rectangular Marquee tool just to make it fast. I'm going to grab this whole image here. Then I'm going to Control-C, copy. Control-V, paste. I'm going to resize it because this is going to be one of the frontward facing, and then we're going to have a sideward facing one up here. And once it's the proper size, I'm then going to go to, I'm going to zoom in a bit, make this a little larger so I can see what's going on. And I mean, his darks look pretty good, but I'm going to go ahead and darken them anyway. So I'm going to go to Enhance, Adjust Lighting, and Levels. I'm going to take the midtones and drag them to the right a little bit. That's going to darken those midtones. I'm going to brighten the whites, get rid of that little paper fold there. So it ends up looking really good, almost like an ink draw. Darken the darks too. So drag the whites to the left, drag the midtones to the right, and drag the darks to the right. And then just hit OK. Now here's the tricky part. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to the background and I'm going to create 3 new layers. I'm going to go down to the bottom layer and I'm going to call it Flat Color. And then this layer here, I'm going to call it Shadows. And then this layer here, I'm going to call it Highlights. The reason we keep these separate is because when we're creating these images, if we make a mistake, and we've got the highlights and the shadows on the same layer, then when you erase the highlight, you're going to erase the shadow as well. So we're going to start on the flat color layer. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call this layer Transparency. And then I'm going to use this drop-down menu only on this layer, and set it to multiply. And what that's going to basically mean is we'll be able to color underneath it and see the lines still. So I'm going to go back down to my flat color layer, and then I'm going to start laying in some darks. I'm just going to start with his face, and by darks I mean color. I'm going to lay in some color. So I'm going to start him out right about there with that skin tone. That's going to be his middle skin tone. And then we're going to make sure it's set on the pencil because we want this to be a solid fill. And then what we're going to do is on the flat color layer, we're just going to lay in flat colors. You can kind of shrink the brush size down, whatnot. this a little larger. Fill in the rest of this. It looks like I missed his ear, so go ahead and fill this in. Now let's say you go beyond your pencil line like that and you want to fix it. The reason that we're keeping this layer separate is for two reasons. There's one, you can go back with the eraser tool and clean up your edges very simply. Another reason is we can get a clean selection, because when you do the shadows and highlights, it's going to be important to have your area selected. So using the Magic Wand tool, the Magic Wand tool is going to select everything the same value. So if I click this, actually, if I click, say if I'm on this layer and I click this, see how it kind of selects everything that's not the figure, and some stuff inside the hair or whatever, not a clean selection. But if we go to the flat color layer, do the same thing, we get a clean selection. Kind of. There's a little bit extra here. So I now want to create kind of a value effect. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to my shadow layer, and I'm going to change from pencil to brush. And take the opacity, it looks like it's around 60%, so I'm going to take it to about 50. Make sure I got a nice soft edge brush. Now looking at this, it's pretty large, so I'm going to shrink it down some. And then I'm going to take this color and I'm going to darken it. And so now I'm going to kind of fill this area in a little bit. You know, just kind of taking it easy. Don't want to overdo it with the shadows. Darken that up on the side here, just kind of reinforcing kind of what Jericho's already done with his pencil work. Alright, so I've got a few shadows laid in. Now it's going to be time for highlights. So I'm going to find a lighter color here. I'm going to leave it on the paintbrush tool, and I'm going to go to the highlights layer. And then I am going to kind of lighten wherever I think the light's going to hit. The cool thing about having this area selected is that means that I can kind of go off the edge and get a much more kind of subtle effect. You know, this bit here. It's light on the center of the nose here. Probably shrink this down. It's probably pretty light here on his lower lip because that's where light hits, and probably some on his chin here too. Okay, so that's a pretty neat effect. So now I'm going to deselect it just to see kind of what it looks like. Now the reason for keeping your flat color layer separated is because, say I didn't like this part here, I'm like, you know, it looks better, that would look better in shadow. But now I've got it deselected. So if I go back to my flat color layer, get my magic wand again, it reselects it, and it's all nice and clean. If these were all jammed together, it'd be hard to get a clean selection. So what I'm going to show you guys how to do is how to use filters. Some of you guys are going to want kind of an artistic look to this. So what you will do after you're finished highlighting and shadowing everything, you're going to take the highlights, shadows, and the flat color layer, and you're going to just right click and merge those layers. So now they're all one layer. At that point, what you're going to do is you're going to come up here to the filter menu, and you can come down to artistic is probably a good one to start with. And as you can see, it's going to apply a different effect to your shadows and highlights depending on what you want. You know, maybe you want something with that kind of a look or this kind of a look. I know it looks a little odd right now because their lines aren't over it, but I'll show you in a second when the lines kind of show back up. That looks cool. I like the smudge stick look. So, you know, you can take and adjust the stroke length, you know, if you want something a little bit more subtle, you know, and then you can hit just OK. And you see it applied the effect underneath the lines. So that's something you can kind of play with. Something else I'm going to show you guys how to do is use the Smudge Tool. And what the Smudge Tool does is it allows you to kind of smear your lines around and give it more of a, I guess for lack of a better word, a painted look. So you can basically blend things out if they're too harsh. You can also kind of pull, like you see I'm pulling this value up. You know, you can extend, right now I'm messing with just the highlights. So you basically can use this to kind of blend things out if it's a little bit too harsh for you, or you know, looks a little bit too much like MS Paint paintbrush tool. Okay, you can kind of use this Smudge Tool And you can change the strength of it. If you set it higher, it'll smudge a lot harder and further. If you don't, then it'll kind of do it shorter. So what I'm doing now is I'm messing with the shadow layer because I want to kind of drag around some shadows and kind of make some better blends to there. Okay, so zoom in a little bit and take a look at it. Yeah, it looks pretty darn good. So that's the end of that demonstration. Enjoy. Have fun.